Hi, I was asked recently by one of my viewers, Matthew, if I could do a dovetail joint at something other than 90 degrees because he was making a stool and he wanted to include that in his design. Well, I made this yesterday, which is a large through dovetail at 110 degrees. Now, I plane my pieces square all round. I happen to be the same width. They are different thicknesses. That's not going to matter. Now, because this is a prototype for something I'm building later on in the year, I'm going to do exactly how that's going to be, and that's only going to have one tail, but it won't matter doing it with more than one tail. The technique's exactly the same. Now I think you can see that's doing it at a right angle. That's quite easy because we can use normal dovetail marker to mark tails on the one piece, slash across for the ends, and if we want to, copy the tails down on the far side. But if we cut these ends as they're going to finish up, so if we take off the excess that you can see there from both of them when they've joined together, if we cut that off first of all, then it becomes more difficult to mark out the joint. So we'll start square. Obviously we are going to be cutting off that portion there, and we're going to be cutting off that portion there eventually. So first thing, I want to mark out the tail. This is going to be my tail board. I'm going to go for 1 in 6. Doesn't matter, and because this is for a project I'm doing later on, it's a prototype, I'm going to do it just with the one tail. Now how do I know how far down to come on this cut? Because obviously it's going to be coming in an angle, and as it's an angle it's going to be longer than this width is. Now I just mark in with the bevel gauge set at 70 and 110 degrees. The bevel is going to be at the end. That diagonal now actually gives me the length that my tail needs to be, so how far down I have to come on this piece of wood. And I can take that directly off there. Like so. And obviously you could do this mathematically, but that'll be close enough. And we'll take a marking gauge, set that and just mark for the shoulders of the dovetails. Mark the shoulders of the tails around the work. Again, it's going to be at an angle, so we need to use the bevel gauge. You see I'm doing this with a pencil so you can see it a bit more clearly. You could do it with a knife for a little more accuracy. Now I'm holding the work in my hand so I can angle it towards the camera nicely for you, but this would be a lot easier if you actually put it in the vise. So that'll be the shoulders of the tail. I hope you can see that this is going to give a slightly different, we can't just square across the end, because on this far side the angle of the slope would be different. It's going to be more flared at the bottom when it's done correctly. Hopefully it'll become more clear as I do it. So a dovetail should, on the other side, lines up with here and there. So we can just join those sections up and extend them to the end. So from there, through there and to the end. And from there, through there, to the end. Now if we mark the tail on the one side, obviously because we're going to be losing this front side, putting them together at an angle, so on this side the tail is going to end up at the moment looking bigger and more flared apart at the top. So I've transferred lines around to get those intersection points extended to the corners, and then I've joined up the more flared side to the original side on both of those, so we're not going to be cutting parallel as would normally be the case when cutting tails. So you see a rather odd looking dovetail. So I've cut this off at the right angle. That's how they're going to go together. So this is a little bit more tricky because we need to hold the pieces at the right angle, all lined up nicely, like so, and mark in for the pins. That's where it says that I want to go according to this one. That according to that one. And I need to leave the line because I was marking outside of the tail. Now I can check that with marking gauge. Because this is on an angle here, it's not always easy to get it exactly square. So check those markings with the gauge, set it at the top. And then run down your line and make sure it's in the right place. And you can score it as well if you like. Square that across. And the same on this side. So we can now cut the socket out on the pin board, and hopefully they'll go together. There we go. So a few shavings from each face and it's cleaned up nicely, flushed up. I've got some disappointing gaps on the edge of this dovetail here, but to be honest I was very quick cutting it with the Ryoba saw and not paying perhaps enough attention. So that's a through dovetail at 110 degrees. It's the first time I've done one of those, and I'm looking forward to polishing the skills up before I actually make the project that I've got in mind for the near future. Hope you enjoyed it. Cheerio.